Coming up on Cannabis Coast to Coast News this week, Matt Goetz is out as President-elect Trump's choice for AG. Pam Bondi is in, but is that good or bad news for federal cannabis reform? And add in the nomination of Dr. Oz to run Medicare in the new president's cabinet, and you have to wonder if reform will be a priority in the 119th Congress. We hear from Morgan Fox, the political director of NORML, and Andrew Behringer in Washington, D.C. Plus, a DEA judge continues to load the deck with prohibitionist groups for that December 2nd DEA hearing on rescheduling, and the FDA finally approves a clinical trial of medical cannabis as a treatment for PTSD through VA doctors. And a group of congressional lawmakers joined the Last Prisoner Project and other advocacy groups urging outgoing President Joe Biden to pardon past low-level cannabis crimes.
He would like us to take his ashes, mix it in with some soil, and grow a marijuana plant and smoke him.
Yes, that's YouTuber Rossana Pansino smoking a joint on camera, fulfilling her dead father's last wish to toast his memory with weed that is laced with her father's ashes. So that's okay on YouTube because they can make money on that while they suppress educational content and news on the industry? Only in America, only on Cannabis Coast to Coast News with Alaina Pinto. Next.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cannabis Coast to Coast News, PCM TV's weekly production of cannabis news. I'm Alaina Pinto. When people ask, where can you get this news besides on YouTube? We say, download the PCM TV app. It's free and contains the most watched videos produced by PCM TV over the past 3 years. The QR code on the screen will take you right to the App Store or Google Play. And then every week, the most recent news will be available to play with one touch. First up this week, the transition of a new administration that continues to have a slight pro-cannabis slant. This week saw one of them, the controversial Matt Goetz, withdrawing his nomination by Trump to become the next attorney general. Then Trump nominated Pam Bondi as his replacement. Historically, she has not been as pro-cannabis as Goetz is. When she was the Attorney General of Florida for 8 years, she fought to get an adult use ballot question removed in Florida. She also has the reputation of doing what she is told by Republican Party leaders. So if those leaders pass reform, she may not block it. But like everything in cannabis standard time in Washington, D.C., this fight to end prohibition will be ongoing in 2025 and the 119th Congress. This week, Trump named his pick for the director of Medicare. It's TV personality Dr. Matt Oz. Dr. Oz has been preaching the medicinal benefits of the plant for years on his show, but he is not a huge supporter for adult use. So the game of political nomination approval is up next as the transition to the next administration in Washington, D.C. continues. Our man in D.C. is Andrew Behringer, and he takes a look at what this might mean for any kind of federal cannabis reform.
I'm Andrew Behringer with the Washington, D.C. report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. In a sudden turn of events, former Representative Matt Goetz has withdrawn his name from consideration for Attorney General, leading President-elect Trump to announce former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi as his new nominee. This change signals a potential pivot in federal cannabis policy as Bondi's record stands in stark contrast to Goetz's pro-legalization stance. Now, during her tenure as Florida's Attorney General from 2011 to 2019, Bondi consistently opposed cannabis reform, including actively fighting against medical cannabis legalization. She notably defended the state's ban on smokable medical cannabis, though ultimately lost that legal battle. Her previous role on Trump's Commission on Combating Drug Addiction and Opioid Crisis also revealed concerns about cannabis legalization going forward. In a parallel development, Trump has tapped Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, Kennedy's nomination comes after a notable political journey from Democratic presidential candidate to independent and finally to Trump supporter. As potential HHS secretary, Kennedy would oversee the FDA and could significantly influence federal drug policy. Kennedy's approach to cannabis differs a lot from Bondi's, as he advocates for full legalization and taxation. If confirmed, he would push for more aggressive cannabis reform, potentially going beyond the Biden administration's recommendation to reschedule cannabis to a Schedule III. Now, these appointments present a striking contrast in cannabis policy as it approaches within the same administration with Bondi's historical restrictive stance at justice and Kennedy's reform-minded position at HHS, potentially setting the stage for an interesting policy dynamic ahead. Well, that's me. I'm Andrew Behringer, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
One more note on the DEA's latest delay tactics on the rescheduling process. The next hearing that was postponed and then rescheduled is now back on the calendar for December 2nd. There are 25 prospective testimonies scheduled to appear in front of the DEA on that day, but some have been disqualified by the DEA judge overseeing this process. Plus, some have dropped out. There are reports now that there are more than 50% of the groups and individuals scheduled to give testimony who are prohibitionists, and many of them want cannabis to stay at Schedule 1. Of course, all of this won't matter if the new Republican-controlled Congress wants to create reform in their own image and agenda. The biggest question is, can the lobbyists in D.C. convince lawmakers to make federal cannabis reform a priority? And will President Joe Biden step up and use his expiring executive pardon power to impact the thousands of low-level cannabis possession convictions that are still in place?
This is an issue about prioritization, not necessarily support. And it's also, I think, does present some real opportunities. We have a lot of opportunities to try to get the Biden administration to do as much as it can when it comes to pardons and clemency in the remainder of his presidency. And I think that we also have an opportunity to really build up a significant amount of support in terms of co-sponsorships for existing legislation so that we can help pave the way for faster reintroductions in the 119th Congress.
One more note from Washington, D.C. This past week, 67 members of Congress sent a memo to President Biden to enact some meaningful executive pardons before he leaves office. It may be the best way to keep the reform movement going, since it's doubtful this lame duck Congress will be able to get anything done before January, and that includes the next farm bill. However, this week, the Senate actually created a draft for the next farm bill that does address the growth of intoxicating hemp products that have become a bipartisan target at the federal and state levels. Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow introduced that new draft of the next farm bill, which now means the House has one and now the Senate has one. However, both versions have some issues that will not close the loopholes that the 2018 version created. One was the vague definition of hemp as having only 0.3% THC. That caused the loophole that allowed the emergence of the intoxicating, unregulated products that found their way into convenience stores, smoke shops, and gas stations. The fact that lawmakers continue to focus on THC percentage as the one intoxicating cannabinoid in the plant once again exposes the lack of knowledge about how this plant works with the endocannabinoid system that is present in all mammals. This lack of knowledge by lawmakers is also being practiced by thousands of consumers who make the same mistake when they make when buying decisions in dispensaries about their legal adult use. The educational process and regulatory approach to cannabis sativa has to change if a set of long-lasting federal reforms can be introduced into law. A report by the U.S. Health and Human Services and CDC released this past fall suggested that an approach based more on education than prohibition is the type of reform that would be most effective. In the meantime, legal states continue their up and down existence, and we start our state-by-state roundup in Michigan, where prices and sales continue to fall year over year. Here's Amie Carter.
I'm Amie Carter with Michigan Weedsters for this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Flourish is shutting down its $46 million grow facility in Adrian, laying off 46 employees by the end of the month. The company struggled with profitability as cannabis prices dropped 21% this year, averaging around $73 per ounce. The CEO cited overwhelming competition from outdoor growers and operational challenges, including a faulty dehumidification system. While the Adrian site contributed 20,000 pounds of product annually, Flourish will continue operations at its more efficient Grand Rapids facility. In October, Michigan cannabis sales reached $262.9 million, marking a 4.3% decline from September of last year. Medical cannabis sales fell drastically, down 70% from last year, while adult use sales grew by 33%. The average price for a pound of adult use flower decreased to $1,562. I think many Michiganders can agree that quality has drastically went down along with the price. The great thing about Michigan is that you can grow your own or find a caregiver. I think everyone can agree that quality is essential. I know many of us are gearing up to head to Las Vegas for MJ BizCon 2024. Michigan Weedsters will be there for the second year running, hosting the Michigan State Takeover at 3 p.m. December 5th at the Hub. I will also be doing a panel with Courage in Cannabis to promote the book series. Join us at Planet 13 December 5th at 5 p.m. If you are planning on attending MJ BizCon and you own a business or a brand, please contact us because we will be there doing interviews. I'm Amie Carter with the Michigan Cannabis Report for this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Despite all those market fluctuations in Michigan, that state continues to challenge California as the nation's #1 cannabis market. The Golden State has made a mess of its cannabis market ever since they moved from medical only to adult use legalization in 2016. This week, one of the oldest, most well-known and successful California cannabis companies has gone into receivership. Way back in 2006, advocate Steve D'Angelo, the founder of Last Prisoner Project, joined forces with Dress Wedding and started Harborside out of Oakland. In the beginning, it was a vertically integrated medical nonprofit and built it into one of the biggest and most important dispensary chains in the state. In January of 2018, Steve D'Angelo sold the first legal cannabis in the state to adults. A year later, they went public on the Canadian Stock Exchange, and then 2 years later sold to State House Holdings. That company moved quickly into acquisition mode and now is shutting down and going into receivership. The bidding for the company's assets could bring in $120 million, and that would be the largest company in receivership in cannabis history. In the meantime, the capital of California, Sacramento, is opening their doors for cannabis social clubs. The city council there voted 5-4 this week to start to distribute social club licenses in 2025. The ventilation issue of secondhand smoke is the biggest concern to regulators and lawmakers, but improvements to cleaning the air and smoke accumulated with indoor facilities seems to be easing those concerns. One state that seems to have the social club movement operational enough to be studied is Nevada, and specifically Las Vegas, where Tina Tasaka continues to offer insight on the emergence of these types of clubs in the adult entertainment capital of the world, plus a look at the tribal initiatives in this country. Here's Tina.
I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies, and this is the Nevada and Tribal Nations Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. MG Magazine spotlighted a recent article from Mitch Chargo, a tribal lawyer specializing in tribal cannabis in Minnesota, Indigenous Opportunities in Cannabis. Chargo describes the significant economic benefits of entering the cannabis market, including new revenue streams, job opportunities for tribal members, and entrepreneurial opportunities. To summarize the article from Mr. Chargo, the cannabis industry provides Native American tribes an opportunity to boost economies and create jobs within tribal sovereignty. It diversifies revenue streams and funds essential services like education and healthcare. Cannabis operations also generate jobs in cultivation, production, regulatory, compliance, and retail, while fostering skill development in agriculture and business, promoting self-reliance and long-term community growth. In Las Vegas Review-Journal, Clark County Sheriff Kevin McMahill stated that legalizing marijuana in Nevada has not curbed the black market. Speaking with venture capitalists Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz, he noted that illegal cannabis sales often leads to violence, including homicides. McMahill emphasized the need to address behaviors linked to these sales. Experts identified the black market as a significant challenge, partly due to Las Vegas regulations limiting licensed deliveries to private residences. Also, tourists may unknowingly buy from unlicensed sellers, fueling the problem. Despite efforts to shut down illegal dispensaries, the issue remains persistent. And in northern Nevada, the third marijuana dispensary in Carson City, the capital of Nevada, opened Saturday, November 23rd. Rise Dispensary celebrated its new store opening with a ribbon cutting and swag bags for the first lucky 100 attendees. Operated by Green Thumb Industries of Chicago, the shop offers a variety of cannabis vapes and edibles. In line with Rise's commitment to community giving, all grand opening profits will be donated to the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada. That's it for the Nevada highlights and tribal nations. I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies and Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
That'll do it for the A Block, our first section of our Cannabis Coast to Coast news roundup for this week. We have plenty more state reports for you, and later we'll share the story of a YouTuber who has caused quite a stir by blatantly lighting up on camera and offering a tribute to her deceased father by smoking a joint with his ashes sprinkled in it. Seriously, it was quite a tribute, though. Next up is Joe Parsons, our man in Virginia who found a guy in his state who is building houses out of hemp. All that and more in our state reports after this.
Today I'm here in Hardy, Virginia at the site of one of the first houses that's built almost entirely out of hemp.
Ready to take your craft to the next level? Imagine faster extractions, purer products, and more profits. Sounds good, right? At Pure 5 Extraction, we've revolutionized cannabis extraction with our game-changing technology. No solvents, no heat, just the cleanest, most natural process on the market. Whether you're a boutique grower or a large-scale operation, Pure 5 has the tools to elevate your business worldwide. Visit pure5extraction.com today. Pure 5 Extraction, because your plants deserve the best. In Willow Creek, Rory, renowned for birdwatching, embraced nature's elegance. Preparing for his woodland sojourn, he used Grape Focus THC Mist from Yellow Labs. Each spritz honed his senses, capturing avian beauty. Immersed in the forest symphony, Rory's lens froze vibrant moments. Emerging at twilight, gratitude filled him for the mist's clarity. Recalling, find Yellow Labs near you. Rory ordered more of his mist from
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the B Block of Cannabis Coast to Coast News, PCM TV's weekly roundup of news from the cannabis industry. I'm Alaina Pinto. When people ask, where can you get this news besides on YouTube? We say download the PCM TV app. It's free and contains the most watched videos produced by PCM TV over the past 3 years. The QR code on the screen will take you right to the App Store or Google Play. And then every week, the most recent news will be available to play with just one touch. We start our state reports in the B Block with Joe Parsons in Virginia.
I'm Joe Parsons from the Virginia Cannabis Connection, and this is the Virginia Cannabis Report on Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Today I'm here in Hardy, Virginia at the site of one of the first houses that's built almost entirely out of hemp. That's right, you can build your future with hemp. It's not just for getting high. It's not just for industrial rope or bracelets. There's many more purposes. And as you can plainly see, hemp is the way of the future. Hempcrete, or hemp lime as it's often referred to as, is an amazing building material that's basically concrete made out of hemp. You start with the inner workings of the industrial hemp plant. It gets ground up into a small, fine mixture, and then they add water and lime to it. That's it. No other complex steps needed. Just Mother Nature at its finest. Hempcrete actually dates back to ancient China. Those were the first buildings that were built completely out of the hemp plant. It was also used in ancient Egypt. That's where they refined it and turned it into the ropes. Some ropes that are used by the United States Navy to this day. So, as you can see, there's many more uses for the industrial hemp plant besides making rope, paper, and bracelets. The mixture is easy to transport and fairly easy to work with. It comes out looking similar to regular concrete. However, it's much easier to handle, and most of the time, they install it by hand. That's the case for this house as well. All the work that's been done on this house has been a community effort, and it's all been laid completely by hand. Once this house is complete, it'll be just another reminder of how awesome the industrial hemp plant truly is and what we can do with it. I look forward to coming back to this house very soon to show you how the house turns out. Scott McStacy from Sativix Agricultural has been overseeing this amazing project. And as it's developed and once it's completed, I'm going to come back out here and let you see the finished result. It's definitely a work in progress, but one that we should all look forward to. So, Scott, tell us, what are some of the major advantages to a house that's built out of hemp?
Well, the first thing and probably the most important thing, Joe, is that it's fireproof, severely fire resistant. And they've taken a 12-inch thick wall with 1700 degrees on one side, and it didn't burn, and the other side of the wall, 12 inches over, didn't raise 1 degree. So it's incredibly insulative. It won't burn. It won't mold. Termites won't eat it. And it's, of course, all natural.
Outstanding. What are your plans once this project has been completed?
Well, my plans are to open a hemp school, and so we can teach people how to do this, train this new generation of industry workers that we're going to need. We're not just going to focus on hemp lime construction, but we're also going to focus on the whole entirety of hemp, whether it be medicine or whether it be houses or whatever. You know, anything you can make out of plastic, for example, you can make out of hemp plastics, and they biodegrade in 90-some days. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there, and we want to teach people. So that's my next big project.
Excellent.
I'm also going to be getting the hemp spraying machine, which will make this type of thing a lot faster and a little more efficient. But this way we're doing it, the way we're doing it today is more of a community-focused effort.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's a good feeling.
Well, as you can plainly see, the future is looking brighter every day, and I look forward to being a part of this amazing new future. Well, that's going to do it from the Virginia Cannabis Connection and reporting from Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Joe Parsons with Scott McStacy. Until next time, stay lifted.
Did you know that a hemp-based wall is fireproof? Another reason why we love to report on this fascinating industry. In Texas, there were 4 cities who had decriminalization of cannabis possession on their ballots. One of the biggest cities in the Lone Star State, Dallas, passed its decriminalization question with flying colors. However, that result did not sit well with the sitting attorney general of that state. Lisa Williams explains in her Texas Cannabis Report from the city of Dallas.
I'm Lisa Williams, founder of the Toke Agency, bringing you the Texas Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Dallas voters just didn't whisper. They shouted, passing Proposition R with a 67% landslide. That was the message. Let's stop wasting time and resources on small-scale marijuana enforcement. But instead of listening, Attorney General Ken Paxton swooped in with a lawsuit faster than you could say, smells like democracy in action. His argument? Cities can't ignore state drug laws. But voters aren't asking for cannabis free-for-all. They're asking for smart priorities. Paxson's response feels like someone's showing up to a pool party and yelling about a fire code. When the people speak this loudly, shouldn't their elected officials put on their listening ears instead of their lawyer hats? Or is democracy only cool when it's convenient? I'm Lisa Williams, founder of the Toke Agency, bringing you the Texas Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
One more note on Texas. In Laredo on November 15th, U.S. Customs and Border Control officers made a major bust at the World Trade Bridge, which connects with Mexico. Officers suspected that some contraband might be concealed in the seat cushions of a 2023 Chevrolet S10 Max truck. Inside those cushions was just under 360 pounds of cannabis with a street value of $800,000. While Texas battles with its own cities and towns over hemp and cannabis, there's another red state that is starting to talk about making changes to their cannabis laws, and that state is Indiana, in what might be a sign that Republicans see an opportunity to solidify their base by coming up with more friendly cannabis decriminalization initiatives. A Republican-backed group is starting to talk with lawmakers in the Hoosier state about adopting a new safe and regulated cannabis policy in a state that has traditionally upheld prohibition. Two of the biggest proponents for change are a former veteran and retired past president of the Professional Firefighters Union, Tom Hannafy, who wants reform to create a safe and regulated market. He says new laws will take money out of the pockets of criminals in the legacy market and invest it back into his home state. A Republican city council member in Indianapolis, Michael Paul Hart, also said by adopting best practices and regulating marijuana similar to tobacco and alcohol, Indiana can better prevent access to minors, shut down illegal dealers, create jobs, and bring in hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue. Indiana would become the 25th state to legalize adult use. So it's certainly legal in Arizona, though, where a local scientist has teamed up with the University of Arizona on a new testing facility. Here's Karen Black.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. A cutting-edge cannabis testing facility opened its doors in Tucson November 19th. Eternum Analytics, located in Arizona's Tech Park, has made history as the first and only academic-affiliated cannabis institution due to its partnership with the University of Arizona. The brains behind the operation is Dr. David Scott, a Tucson native, who is committed to making cannabis safe and transparent. The grand opening was a hit, featuring lab tours, free cannabis seeds, and a chance for attendees to chat with scientists. Visitors also learned how to read those complex certificates of analysis on cannabis products. It's a great time of year to golf here in Phoenix, especially in support of the cannabis industry and veterans. Apparel company 420 Golf hosted its first veteran charity golf tournament and happy hour to benefit the Heart of a Lion charity November 18th in Glendale. Golfers of all skill levels enjoyed a day on the course while raising funds to support veterans in need. Over in Scottsdale, Proven Media scored a major win. The firm was named the PR agency of record for the Arizona Dispensaries Association. The 10-year-old firm was a trailblazer in the cannabis sector and is known for its Meet the Cannabis Press events, which have played a pivotal role in shaping the narrative around cannabis in the media landscape. The partnership should help the association with its goals of furthering policy reform, driving economic growth, and creating a sustainable cannabis ecosystem in Arizona. That's all for this week's Arizona Report. I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
There are currently 24 states in the U.S. where cannabis sales are illegal to adults 21 and over. Since 2019, 15 states have legalized sales for adults, and while some states like Minnesota are just now getting prepared for their first lottery license distribution, the race to become the 25th state to legalize continues. Many thought it would be Florida, but we all know what happened there with the Smart and Safe Group's Yes on 3 initiative failing to reach the 60% threshold that was needed to change that state's constitution. Nebraska added to the total number of decriminalized states with the passing of their ballot initiatives for a medical program. And now that decrim number is at 39 states. So the race for number 25 continues. But one of the first of 2 states to legalize adult use sales is Washington. And that's where Matthew Friedlander has been living and working for years. Here's his report for this week.
Hi, I'm Matthew Friedlander, coming to you from the owner's office here at Skagit Organics with the Washington State Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast. I am back after a few weeks, and today I will be talking about some leadership changes at the LCB, along with what to expect from our legislative session here in Washington this year. So David Postman, who had been the chairman of the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board, has been tapped by the transition team for our new governor, Bob Ferguson. Bob Ferguson was our attorney general here in Washington and now moves into the governor's mansion. And with David Postman coming from the LCB, both of them have been pretty receptive to the cannabis industry, and we expected them to continue to be receptive of our work in the governor's office. There have been some changes with the new elections here in the state legislature, most notably the Regulated Substance and Gaming Commission, where cannabis bills often found themselves, no longer exists. So we will be keeping an eye on how the new committees roll out at the state level and where our legislation may end up this year. The Cannabis Alliance will continue to host their annual lobby days. This will be happening in January. We expect January to be a very busy time of year for us. So that's what I've got for you this week out of Washington. My name is Matthew, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
That'll do it for the B block of this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast news. Don't go away, because in the C block, we have that story of a YouTuber who granted the dying wish of her late father by combining his ashes in the soil of a cannabis plant and smoking it in his honor. Cannabis Coast to Coast news continues after this break.
Truth or drink? How many people have you hooked up with? What's your body count number? Maybe one more for good measure.
It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weegits filtration system. What? The Weegits.com, Weegits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weegits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the final section or C block of Cannabis Coast to Coast. I'm Alaina Pinto. This is our final reminder that if you want to get access to this newscast every week, easy access. Scan the QR code on the screen and download the PCM TV app. Not only can you get access to our weekly roundup of industry news, but also get access to past 3 years of coverage of the fight to end cannabis prohibition in the app content section that features the best of PCM TV shows. With the new Republican control of Congress, the stock market continues to fluctuate, especially in cannabis stocks. It might be a good time to jump now ahead of the speculation on federal reform. Our man who is high on Wall Street is Doug Miller, and he takes a look at Tilray, which might finally be ready to rebound.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast. The cannabis business hasn't panned out the way many investors expected. So one cannabis company is expanding into another struggling industry, and it's buying up American beer brands. Tilray is now the 5th largest craft brewer in the U.S. by volume, with 18 brands, including Shock Top and Sweetwater. So let's see how this strategy is working with the stock charts. It is trading around $1.34, and it's looking really good as it's curling up. Keep an eye out for any dips because this thing's going to be ripping. And remember to trade smart and lock in those profits. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast, I'm Doug Miller.
This is Debbie Facey with the Canadian Coast to Coast Cannabis Report. So what we have in Canada this week is Canada has now created something called the Safer Streets, and it is going to be a stricter penalty when it comes to companies that are advertising and promoting their brands. So in the act of the Cannabis Control Act in 2017, part of that was that no brand was going to be able to advertise or brand out their companies. This meant when it comes to their packaging, their wording, as well as even colors. So now Canada has implemented for individuals to be fined $100,000, while corporations can be fined up to $250,000. Wow. This is aiming for dispensaries to not necessarily rely solely on the advertisements and being able to use more of the pricing. But at the same time, as somebody part of the industry, these penalties are huge. And hopefully the brands that are behind these, that are recognizing that they are being penalized for their usages of words or colors, that they take this seriously because, yeah, Canada's getting pretty strict. So for the one story and for Canada's report, this is Debbie Facey with the Canadian Coast to Coast Cannabis Report. Peace.
In Massachusetts, one of the largest multi-state operators in the world, Curaleaf, has received a license to open the Bay State's first research facility for the study of cannabis. Curaleaf is a publicly traded Canadian stock that operates 150 dispensaries in 19 legal states, but was started in Massachusetts. Curaleaf has a number of adult use and medical stores in Massachusetts and grows a number of popular brands. Curaleaf has been preparing a location in Newton, located just outside of Boston. And finally, after 2 years, it has reached approval of the state's Cannabis Control Commission. On the other side of the industry, business is the single craft grower and dispensaries. And PCM founder Jimmy Young found his way out to one licensee's store in Grafton for a promotional event called Thanksgiving.
This is Discerned, a single family-owned, locally operated cannabis dispensary in North Grafton, Massachusetts, a small town just outside of Worcester. Okay, so it is the weekend before Thanksgiving, and I'm here at Discerned Dispensary in North Grafton, Massachusetts for their Thanksgiving. Danks, as opposed to thanks. So Meredith, what the heck is Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving is cooler than cool. Sticky, stinky, sweet, potent, the best of the best.
And we're talking about cannabis, not food, right?
Yeah, mostly cannabis, but it stands for everything.
I notice you have a barbecue set up inside. There's nothing like smell-o-vision, so all we can do is describe how good it smells. And the combination of the cannabis smell and the barbecue smell.
So natural, so natural. The best.
How is business today? Are you starting to see people come in here?
Oh yeah, we have some great vendors here. People love coming in for our events, and we love having them.
And that's why Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving is so special. A happy Thanksgiving to all, and a special Thanksgiving from all of us at PCM TV. I'm Jimmy Young reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
And finally, this week, the story we've been talking about all show long. It's about a woman YouTuber and influencer from California named Rossana Pansino. She's had billions of views of her baking and food show that she did with her late father, who died 5 years ago from leukemia. And now she's starting a new podcast and decided to really make a splash by smoking a joint made from weed grown by her mother and herself. You see, though, it was a very special strain that was sprinkled with his ashes. Her new podcast is called Ridiculous. There it is. She did her baking show with her father for years, who was known as Papa Pizza. That's cute. Now she explains that her late father used to describe her behavior as ridiculous. So she decided to launch this podcast called Ridiculous. And to honor him, on the first episode, she decided she would fulfill one of his dying wishes, which was to smoke a joint that was grown by his family.
I'm going to smoke my dead dad. And before I do this, so basically, I'm going to take a hit and then I'm going to go outside and my mom and my sister are going to do the same. They wanted to do so off camera, but then my sister might come in and hang out with me and just share some fun stories or memories that we have about dad. We'll just see how we feel. We're just going to play it by ear. You know, there's no rules anymore. Maybe one more for good measure. I honestly can't believe I'm doing this.
Only in America. She wasn't sure if YouTube would allow her to imbibe on camera, but they did warn her. So far, she has created quite a few viewers. So it's doubtful that the social media platform will shut her down or remove the content from its library. Something many cannabis content producers have to deal with all the time. Well, that's a perfect way to end this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast news show. Since this is Thanksgiving week, we want to wish all of our subscribers and followers a very happy holiday. Plus, we want to remind you all that we have a crew of reporters ready to travel to Las Vegas for MJ BizCon next week. If you are going and want to be interviewed for the MJ BizCon special, you can contact us at info@procannabismedia.com. I'm Alaina Pinto. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there, so use it responsibly. We'll see you next time.
I think I messed up. Did you know there's a place that covers all the cannabis news you need? Welcome to Pro Cannabis Media, your go-to for all things cannabis. PCM is the CNBC of weed, bringing you the latest news and talk shows with a twist. We've got 16 state correspondents and multimedia journalists from around the US and Canada.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with Big Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Green Finger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Amie Carter from Michigan Weedsters.
Andrew Behringer here reporting from Washington, D.C.
It's Debbie Facey with the Canadian Toke of the Week.
It all started back in 2018 when founder Jimmy Young kicked off the In the Weeds podcast. His mission? Documenting the fight to end cannabis prohibition. Fast forward to today and we've got Cannabis Coast to Coast with Alaina Pinto, delivering the nation's only TV-style cannabis news show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast, PCM TV's weekly roundup of industry news from California to New York. I'm Alaina Pinto.
As of August 2024, PCM has racked up over 1.2 million views and 14.5 million impressions on our YouTube channel. With 15,000 subscribers and growing, our reach is spreading like wildfire. PCM's website, YouTube, Rumble, Discord, Roku, Twitch, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and even our very own PCM TV app. Get your cannabis news fix with Pro Cannabis Media. We're here to keep you informed and entertained. Stay tuned and stay lifted.